Have you ever roasted a marshmallow over a campfire? You know how you want to get it toasty brown before it bursts into flames? Well, that's the way I'm feeling right now. Toasted and roasted, but I've not burst into the flames of burnout just yet. So, we're going to share one thing that will keep us all from bursting into flames.
Welcome to the Get Business Savvy podcast. I'm George Black, and I've helped lead 19 companies to over $1 billion in combined revenue.
And I'm AJ Bishop, a starting entrepreneur.
Look, I get it. Burnout is a real thing, but I'm no psychologist. And honestly, you can go find a lot of stuff about it on the internet. So what we thought we would do is talk about burnout from our own experience.
And this is a little bit of an uncomfortable topic to talk about because no one wants to admit they're getting close to burning out. You'll always want to feel like you have full energy and you're ready to do things. But the reality is you're starting something new. It takes time and perseverance. And once you start feeling like you're putting in more work than the results you're seeing, that those feelings of burnout start to get close. And as you said, you're starting to feel toasted and roasted, especially like as this podcast, we've been getting it started and we're going with that, but we haven't seen all the results we want to see yet. And so that gets to keep doing it week in and week out. It starts to weigh on you.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit, guys. This is what's fascinating. It feels like that. You kind of feel that grind, and the grind leads to burnout, or can. And yet I pulled the numbers and I looked at our 2023 analytics over 2022. I mean, we've grown 250, 300% on a variety of different measures.
But it just doesn't feel like that.
Right.
You know, when you told me those numbers beforehand, we were both kind of down on it. And then we saw the numbers and we're like, our feeling of how we thought we were doing is way off from what the numbers were. And how can we get to that place?
Right, because we're under the mentality, which we talked about last week, that grow mentality, especially that comes through on social media. It's driving us to just kind of like burst into flames.
Yeah, because we're comparing our numbers to other YouTube channels, other podcasts, and in reality, we just need to be focusing on our own growth.
Yeah, so this obviously, guys, this topic's been on our hearts a while, and I was recently with a corporate business executive. He's led billion-dollar companies, huge enterprises, and so I wanted to engage him on this topic of burnout, and he basically summed it up as not making forward progress. And he's talking not just from the entrepreneurial business owner standpoint, but employees within the company or leaders within the company. We were riffing on this, and I go, I think it would be like this. Imagine you're a football team and you're 55 minutes into the game, and every time you get the ball, you have it for 3 downs, and then you have to punt.
Welcome to watching the Chicago Bears.
AJ's from Chicago originally. So, yeah, I mean, eventually I think you burn out. So I'm looking for different angles on this. And here's an aerospace definition of burnout. And I want to read it to you. The shutoff of a rocket motor following the exhaustion of its fuel. So translate it. In other words, the motor shuts off when it runs out of gas. And you can just see that rocket free falling, back to Earth or something. I think we're just like that. I think we burn out when we run out of fuel.
So then is that the key, is figuring out how to continuously refill yourself or figure out what your fuel is so that you can make sure it keeps pouring into you?
Well, in a sense, yes, but it's a nice theoretical concept, right? But it's much easier said than done.
Oh, definitely. If we could easily refill, we would.
5 years ago, I shifted direction to have more impact with more entrepreneurs because I knew what I had and what I had learned would help so many of you guys. And so that meant instead of leading companies or guiding one-on-one entrepreneurs, I needed to go one to many. I was very excited about this. And if you just note the timing of all of that, we have a pandemic that started right after that. Okay. And I haven't had the impact I really wanted. Now I am having impact. That's where sort of the toasted, roasted marshmallow feel comes in. I haven't burst into flames yet, but I'm not having the impact. Recently, I came across some research that Liz Wiseman has done, and I want to share that with you. She's authored a book called Multipliers, and then most recently, Impact Players. Let me read to you what Liz says. One of the things that comes up over and over in my research is the relationship between impact and burnout. In this moment in time that we find ourselves in, we're dealing with epidemic levels of burnout in the workplace. Burnout meaning you're not just tired, you're inexplicably tired. And it's so easy to assume that people burn out because they have too much work. Their workload's too big. There's too much pressure, too much on their shoulders. But everything in my research points to something different. We don't tend to burn out because we've got too much work. We burn out because we have too little impact.
Oh, wow. I've never heard burnout described like that. Like, yeah, I've only heard about it talked about in like, you're doing too much work, you need to slow down. But now that I'm thinking about and reflecting back on times I felt like I was getting close to burning out, or people I've seen burn out, this makes so much more sense. It's all about impact. It's not just about the work you're doing.
This absolutely resonates with me. And because for years, I've known I want to have impact, and I measure myself by, am I having impact? And people will periodically tell me, wow, that really helped, and that sort of thing. And you get little feedback and you go, oh, so I'm having impact. That is my rocket fuel in a sense. Now we got to get more specific about it, but it helps me when I'm having that. And so honestly, I don't have a problem working hard. I've worked really, really hard. AJ and I, we put a ton of time into these podcasts, for example, and all sorts of other things. The burnout happens when I don't feel like anyone cares, when there's no impact.
Yeah, and that intuitively, now that I'm thinking about it, it makes so much sense, because obviously there's something within the human spirit that makes us want to work, right? That's how we built society and got to the place that we're at now. People have no problem working. We're designed to work, but we want to work for an impact. We don't want to just work to work. It's the way you're putting it to me. It's like, yeah, when you're making impacts, I'm sure you don't feel like you're working. You just helped an entrepreneur. You didn't work. You showed somebody something from your experience and you helped them apply that to their life. And you could tangibly see the impact of that. That's not just like clocking in hours at a shift.
Right. And so like in my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur, it's all about, I mean, a big part of that is your passions and who are you intended to be? In other words, what difference do I make? Because we all want to make a difference in the world. Our vision here at Live Truly Free is guiding entrepreneurs to greater success so that they can impact their worlds for good. It's what we're about. Liz's research confirms what I've known anecdotally in my own life. And all of a sudden, this just zeroes right into, okay, now we can come up with the antidote. We can fix burnout or prevent burnout in our own lives.
George, do you have any ideas on where to start with all of this? Like, for us who might feel like we're getting close to bursting out in flames, what can you do to, identify your impact and start, working on being more impactful?
Yes. And this goes beyond Liz's research. Okay. So I think you've got to have categories. Where do you want to have impact? And I've come up with, I want to throw out 4 categories. They're very, very broad, intentionally broad. But you may have your own category. Okay. That's good too. So I think money is a category in the sense that I've got to have a job or I've got to make a living or my business has to make a profit. So like personal income is a measure of I'm having impact, or your net income of your business or top line revenue. But I think money is a category. Another category is products. Like it could be how many have you sold, or what kind of reviews or likes am I getting on these products? Like my book. It's like if no one buys my book or no one reads it, it has zero impact. Okay. So, so it's not, I don't live for vanity metrics, but I do want to know Well, if people are buying the book and they're leaving reviews, that would tell me I'm having some impact. If you sell a product and it's selling, you're having an impact because you're doing that product to make a difference in your world. Another category, influence, like social media of your business. We were just talking about YouTube and the podcast. So, views, comments, likes, all of those sorts of things give us some sort of indication of like, what's our impact? Do I keep doing this? And then I think another category is creating value, problem solving, creating success for others that you're going to get some benefit from. So those 4 categories, I think, are a starting point for how to have impact: money, products, influence, and creating value.
Okay. And as you're saying all of this, I'm just thinking through my head in terms of impacts that I've had or times where I felt I'm not as impactful, because there was one summer, for example, where after my first semester away at college, I didn't work during college. So I left and I had as little money as I've ever had in my life as a working person. And that summer I agreed to work at a landscaping company and work at a restaurant as a waiter. And so in the mornings I would get up and I'd go work at the landscaping company. In between, I would take a little bit of a break, work on some summer class work, and then go work at the restaurant and wait tables. And it was long days every day, all summer long. But I never felt like I was getting close to burning out because I knew ultimately the impact was I was going to get my finances back in order and I was going to be financially healthy at the end of it. And that was an impact worth, working long hours and doing 2 very difficult jobs.
That's a great illustration, AJ, because that's actually a grind. That's a summer of grind. Okay. And look, for 3 months or whatever it is, we can all grind it out, right? But to flourish in the grind, because you're having an impact. And that's a great example of how I think money can be an impact.
But I'm thinking there's like degrees of impact to money, right? Because I'm sure we can all take this example like in a corporate space where someone might be getting a really good salary, but they're starting to get towards burning out. And it's because they don't feel like they're making that much of an impact. And maybe that salary that they're earning, the impact of it in their personal life is diminishing over time, or it doesn't mean as much to them over time. Right. And that's why, because their work isn't producing other impacts in any other categories, that the salary ultimately over time, money becomes less and less motivating.
AJ, let me ask you a question on that. Did you have a dollar amount you wanted to achieve by the end of the summer?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So guys, here's the key is you don't want to move the goalpost. So what I'm going to explain to you is how to establish a level, and then I'm going to want you to write it down, and that's the level. So when you reach it, you're having impact. So if you're not feeling like you're having impact right now, so let me just make up some numbers on AJ. He has $0 at the beginning of the summer. All right. He wants to have impact on his bank account. Okay. And let's say he wants that to be $10,000 at the end of the summer. Okay. If he hits $10,000, stop. You're now having impact. Receive that, celebrate that, rejoice in that. Don't move the goalpost. Let's say it's July and he hits his 10 grand. Okay. And he goes, oh, well, I'll move the goalpost another $10,000 and crank out another 10 grand and have 20. No, that's fine for a goal, but that's not fine for measuring impact.
Yeah. And when you do that, it's like you're diminishing the value of your impact level. It was like you were happy with that level of impact before you made that impact. And then when you did, you said, oh, that's not enough. And now that you're pushing yourself towards burnout, I imagine.
I can describe to you exactly what this is like. My father, good-hearted person, wanted to teach me to swim. So let's say I'm 5 years old. Okay. So he's standing in the middle of the pool at a pretty far distance, seems like a big challenge. And he goes, swim to me. So just as I'm about there, he takes 4 steps back. The son of a, I never got there. I never got to the level where I was having impact because the level kept moving. Now, his view of it was, well, I'm just trying to teach you how to swim. And I'm like, no, you're destroying me because everything's diminished. I could see where he was standing and I go, that would be having impact. I would be a swimming impactor or something. I don't know.
Swimmer.
I'm an impactful swimmer. That's probably a better way to say it. I'm an impactful swimmer if I can reach him, but I never reach him. So I never have impact. So if you keep moving the goalposts, guys, you never have impact because you don't ever feel it. All right, let me give you another example. So Seth Godin and others talk about having 1,000 raving fans. I want 1,000 raving fans. I think it's a great idea. Okay. However, from where I'm at, I don't need 1,000 raving fans to know I'm having impact. Okay. To know I'm having impact, it could be 50, it could be 100. And so if I had 50 to 100 raving fans, that would be rocket fuel. That would keep me going. And that rocket fuel is going to propel me to what I would now consider like a goal to have 1,000 raving fans. So we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about where do I have impact? Because we're going after the burnout. As long as I know I'm having impact, then now I can go after the goal. But if I'm not having impact, I'm out of gas.
Yeah, so it's not diminishing or it's not moving the goalpost. It's simply saying we've reached this impact level. And then a question we've asked multiple times, what path now? And remembering I'm making the impact I need to make, but now I have the opportunity to expand that. I have the opportunity to make more impact, to raise that level, but not raise the level in terms of your expectation for what you need. Raising the level in terms of I'm making the impact I need, but now I can just keep on making more and more impact and feeling more and more fulfilled.
And honestly, guys, if we're going to be completely transparent, AJ and I haven't figured out, like, at what level do we feel like we're having impact with our podcast, for example. So we're going to be doing this and we'll keep you posted. Okay. And if you could like and comment and subscribe, that will help us feel good. Okay. But so in this context of having impact and rocket fuel, I want to share a secret rocket fuel that I have, and it's taken me years to cultivate it. And it's reflection and meditation in conversational intimacy with God, the God of the Bible. And it's the rocket fuel that keeps me going in the toughest times. Because for me, the ultimate impact I want to have is for Him. So what you must do is define your impact that will matter most to you. And like I said a little earlier, write it down. Don't change it. Okay. Because it's your impact that you need to be having right now so you don't burn out right now.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense when you think about it. And now we definitely have to identify and define that level of impact we're trying to get to with this podcast.
Okay, wait. I got a great idea, AJ. We haven't, guys, this is not rehearsed, so I don't know what's going to happen. But let's do this spontaneously and just do it for everybody, because I want to illustrate there's 3 sections of this. And so we start with the category. So the categories are money, products, influence, or creating value. So what category do you think the podcast we're in for the podcast?
I mean, influence is the easy one, right? Because we're on social media, but also like creating value. I think that's the one that resonates more with me, is I want to be creating value for the entrepreneurs who come to us.
I agree, AJ. I think the number one category for this podcast is creating value, because that's what we want to do for business owners, entrepreneurs, content creators, solopreneurs, all you guys. So now that we have the category creating value, what we want to do is come up with a subcategory that is more specific, how we're going to achieve it. So what are we going to deliver in the podcast to create value? Let me give you a hint. What do we typically do in every single podcast, regardless of the topic?
Tell people to live truly free.
Well, first of all, we don't tell them, we invite them to live truly free. And second, so that's actually at the tail end. But what we do in every podcast is because this is who I am, we have some way you can go apply what we're suggesting, and it will make your life, your business better.
Yes. Every podcast, there's something tangible you can take away.
Yeah. So our category is create value. Our subcategory on how we're going to achieve that is by including in our podcast, how can you apply what we're talking about? Okay. Which is what we're doing right now. We're showing you guys how to apply it, right? So now we need to establish what's our impact level. So what does it take for us to feel like we're having impact? And this can be a number.
Yeah. And I like the number you said earlier, like 50 to 100. If we just had 50 to 100 people who were coming in regularly every week, listening to the podcast and leaving comments, leaving likes, letting us know, hey, the action you gave me today was very practical and is making my life as an entrepreneur better. And that's helping me make more good in the world. If we just had that on a scale of 50 to 100 people, that would be incredible.
I think that would put enough gas in our tank to where we're not at burnout. It's not our target. Okay. I mean, we want to get to, thousands of subscribers and lots of views, but we're just looking at, so those are goals. Okay. That's something else. What we're talking about is that impact level. I think that's right. 50 to 100 views, getting comments won't be that number, but it'll be some number, 10 to 20 comments, questions, topic ideas. Hey, that was a great podcast, guys. Could you talk about this? Because I'm really wondering, and that sort of thing. So we're getting, because ultimately where AJ and I are headed is building an entrepreneur community on our YouTube channel.
That was exactly what I was about to say. At 50 to 100, it's going to start feeling like a community. And we're going to start recognizing some of those commenters. Oh, hey, they've been here often, or they've liked this type of content. Like, we're going to start to recognize people.
So one more illustration to tie back to what I said at the very beginning is, so I made this shift to go from one to many. And what I've realized this year is I need an impact with many that I can interact with. And so I'm launching masterminds. Now, I only need one mastermind to have that impact. The goal is to have 3 or 4, but with one mastermind with entrepreneurs in it that I'm personally guiding, I know I will be able to see the impact I'm having on them, and they are going to flourish because we're going to save them all kinds of trouble in the school of hard knocks and leveraging off my business experience and all of that. In fact, if you're interested in the mastermind, just click the link below in the description and you can find out more, or even better, come to our free webinar, the Exponential Growth webinar. And there's a link down below. You can click it and go register. And in that webinar, I'm going to give you techniques of how to have huge growth in your business. Plus, it'll be like a mastermind because you'll be able to ask questions in the chat and I'll answer them live. So check all those things out and look at last week's video on growing and how that drives us. I think these 2 podcasts will really help you control burnout and flourish. And until next time, may you live truly free.